everybody, and welcome to the Positively Disney Phone-In Show. I'm Kimberly Bouchard, your host and the author of the Positively Disney books. Thanks to my Twitch followers and you guys out there on Facebook. Want to give special mention to a few that I see, Gina, Chris, and Stan. Thanks for joining me. And you can say hello. Michael, thank you for joining me. Before I start the show, I just want to thank my sponsor, Michelle McCune, over at Years of Experience. She will provide you an amazing Disney vacation that actually includes texting. So if you are lost or need some assistance in ordering or whatever, you just text her and she will help you out. She also has a specialized area for children or families with special needs, as well as the military and concierge services. So you can reach her at mmckeown at themouseexperts.com or give her a call at 732-735-1779. I also want to talk to you and tell you about a great event happening August 10th in Allentown, Pennsylvania, guys. For any of those Disney fans in like 50 square miles or 100 square miles, you don't want to miss this event. There are going to be Disney expert panels, podcasters. I'm actually going to be sharing some of the books and the magic that I've experienced, and we'll be there with my new Star Wars book as well. There are activities for the kids, really cool things happening, photo ops and characters. And if you want to check it out, just check out mousefandom.com. So, I can't wait to have my guest on. And before I introduce him, I just want to tell everybody about something really special that I got for Mother's Day yesterday. I was really surprised. Actually, everything pretty much was Disney themed and mostly Star Wars themed that I got. And, this is something that is really kind of close to my heart as a writer. And I just have to show you this. I was so just taken by surprise. So what it is, here's a cross box, and inside is a special edition, limited edition Chewbacca pen. And it's actually number 11 of 1977. And I thought that is very, very clever of the artist to do that, because of course it was 1977 that Star Wars came out, and it's even got a Swarovski crystal on it. And I can't write with fountain pens because being left-handed, it just kind of like covers the ink covers on my hand. But I really, really love it. And it just is so special because of Peter Mayhew and all that. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. I got a couple of other fun things and about 4 different varieties of Star Wars socks. But anyways, so I had a really lovely day with my family. I want to talk to you briefly about something that is very near and dear to our family's hearts. Actually, we even named a bunny rabbit after him. So how many of you guys, I'm sure y'all recognize this character, and this is one of our favorites, kind of more for a sentimental value, really. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And for Walt Disney, that was a loss that he sustained, but Disney has it back, of course. And what I've got here in my nose, I'm getting itchy. Anyways, Walt was, everybody sort of sees this finished product of Walt Disney and his creations and things like that. But something about Walt Disney, the man, he was a son, he was a brother, he was a father, he was a husband, but most especially he was a father. And, he just wanted to find a place to spend times with his daughters on the weekend out of his busy work schedule. And Walt was a hard worker. We do know that of him. I mean, who wouldn't be? We also know that he suffered a lot of losses, a lot of financial losses to get to where he is today. And, if he wouldn't have lost Oswald, the character, during that horrible deal gone wrong with the claws and all that, we might not ever have had Mickey Mouse. And I came across this magazine about a month ago, and it was in a kind of a very obsolete area in my local grocery store. But I'll tell you, it has got some amazing photos and little things that even I learned about Walt from that. Not that I know everything about Walt Disney himself for sure, but it was really fascinating. And I'm very fascinated by that man, because the thing is that he was a visionary. It was one little spark of an idea that he started, and it really just goes to show you the power of an idea, that then, thank goodness to his brother Roy, it could come to fruition. But it did start with his animation, with his mouse, with our beloved Mickey Mouse. And we can't forget that. Very humbling circumstances did he work. He worked, back in those days, and according to Margaret Carey, who she is the original Tinkerbell pantomime that they created the whole Peter Pan films from. And she was in that era as well. But children were expected to work. And I'm telling you, Walt worked his tail off, selling newspapers, getting up early, slogging through the ice, the snow before he went off to school. And it was not an easy life for him at all. But look at what we get to enjoy. And I want to welcome on to the show a fellow that I actually met at the dinner table of Robbie Sherman. Yes, of the Sherman brothers, Robert and Richard Sherman. There's Robert's son in California. And it was really fun because we'd actually been Facebook friends. And Walter Blanchard has been studying Walt Disney for the last 25 years. And I'm going to get him on the line and see what he can share with us, things that we might not even know about the man. So we're just getting him on the line here. Hi, Mary. Hi, Frank. Hi, Stan. Hi, Jason. So
Hello,
hi, Walt. It's Kimberly Bouchard. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderfully.
That's so good to hear. Listen, Walt, thank you so much for coming on the show. I would just love to hear some of your findings. I did introduce you to the audience and said that we actually met in person at the table of Robbie Sherman in California last month, which I thought was so fun that, we had been Facebook friends. But Walt, what kinds of things can you share with us about the man himself that we might not even know about?
I was thinking about this for the last couple of days, and there is so much research that has been done on Walt Disney's history. I don't know how much that people really don't know.
Okay.
But it's all out there in books. Everything I've found out, I found in books.
Okay.
Some of the things, one thing is there are a lot of people who say that you could never say no to Walt, that he didn't want to hear no. And in my research and also in talking to a few people that I've gotten the chance to meet, it really wasn't that he didn't want to be told no. What he didn't like was being told no because if you could tell him yes if, it that was different to him. It meant that you were thinking about ways that you could accomplish what he wanted.
And that makes sense. And it's kind of a positive spin because, there's kind of that old saying, like, if you can dream it, you can do it. So if you are saying yes, if, so you're already thinking about the things, he was already thinking about the things behind, whoever was bringing it forward, behind getting it done. But if you say no, because then it's kind of an automatic excuse, which for a visionary and innovator like Walt, you want to kind of make sure that you can get a yes or get things done. So you're going to want people around, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And by the way, that quote, if you could dream it, you can. If you could dream it, you could do it.
Yeah.
Isn't actually Walt Disney.
I know, but he's claiming it, and I'm thinking, I love it.
I think a lot of people claimed it for him. I don't know that he necessarily claimed it.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that have spoken for him over the last 40 or so years.
Yeah. Well, we see that, that's one of the famous quotes we see when something's under construction at one of the parks, right? There's sort of that is one of the quotes. And it's very fitting, really, about, that they are dreaming something up, they're creating it, but tell me about another, kind of maybe misconception or something that, we might not know about Walt.
Well, you bring up what's going on in the park and whatnot. I've taken at the park. I've gone on a couple of the walking and Walt's footstep tours.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the last time we went on that, we were standing by the petrified stump in by the Rivers of America.
Okay.
And the tour guide was telling us a story about how Lillian had donated that piece to the park because it was an anniversary gift, and she didn't have any room for it at her house. And that is basically a company made up story.
Oh,
I've had the pleasure to sit and listen to Diane Miller talk.
Okay.
And one of the stories that she told us was that Walt Disney bought that piece expressly for the park, and that he and Lillian came up with that backstory for it because they thought it was more impressive than just he bought it and put it in the park.
Oh, yeah. To embellish a story like that for fun, no harm, no foul, right? Kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything has a story.
It does. Everything has a story. Everything for sure. Yeah.
What I found so funny is that the tour guide told me that was the story that they taught her. She was becoming a tour guide.
Oh.
So it ain't really the case.
Oh, okay. That's so funny. And Walt, when you say that you have, I know you've studied Walt Disney for 25 years. Most of us have not. So it doesn't matter if, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter if you think we might know something. There is somebody out there that won't know, and probably it's myself. So anyways, so continue. What other kinds of things? I know I had mentioned, and to my audience listening, when I invited Walt on, I said, can you give me 10 top things, that we might not know about Walt? But anyways, continue, Walt. Thank you.
One of the other stories that has gotten a lot of play throughout the press is that Walt Disney was a master mason, and that it was very secretive, and that the Masons are very secretive.
Uh-huh.
I have the fortune to have been raised by a grandfather who was a master mason.
Oh.
And he wanted me to become one, and for various reasons, I couldn't do it.
Right.
But one of the things that I do know about Masons is that while they don't talk about being Masons,
mm-hmm.
they have absolutely no problem showing off the symbols of their brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been through the museum up in San Francisco probably since it's been open, probably a dozen or so times.
And you're talking about the Walt Disney Family Museum, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And anybody in the San Francisco area that's a Walt Disney fan, the museum is a must.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I have found in going through that museum is there is only one piece that I have found in the museum that actually ties Walt Disney in any way to Masonry, and that was that he was a member of the Demolay Society, which is an offshoot of Masonry. And his Demolay card from 1919 is on display in the museum.
Oh.
There are no other artifacts that I can buy
Okay. So I'm wondering if he was sort of made an honorary member, I wonder,
Uh,
or
well, one of the other things that I read, and I think it was in Building an Empire by Bob Thomas, was more to do with Roy, and that Roy O. Disney
mm-hmm.
talked about being a Mason, and that he quit when Roy E. met his first wife, Patty.
Okay.
And that because she was Catholic, and he knew that there might be some possible friction there, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't want any between him and his future daughter-in-law or his son. So
okay.
he quit Masonry. And
Okay.
the other thing I know from my grandfather is that if you're a hardcore Mason, you don't quit.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really interesting. So now when I go back there, I'll be looking for that card for sure. What else can you tell us about Walt?
One of the other things that I learned from the museum was that when Walt went to Hollywood in 1923,
Mm-hmm.
he really thought that animation had passed him by.
Why did he think that? Why did he think that?
Well, he had lapograms back in Kansas City,
mm-hmm.
and that didn't work out, and he wasn't getting any bites on the animation he had done, but the other people that were doing it had already done everything that could be done. So he was actually looking, when he came to California, to become a director of live action films.
Oh, for crying out loud. Wow. Wow.
He used to hang out on the lots at the various studios that he could get on and watch them filming movies and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh.
And again, it was Roy O.
Mm-hmm.
When he was looking for something to do, that Roy was the one that said, "What about this animation thing?"
Mm.
And the relationship between brothers.
Mm.
I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't know, is that the success of the Disney Brothers studio and Walt Disney Productions, that was Roy and Walt together. Walt's imagination and creativity, and Roy's business sense.
You know, I find that really interesting because, I have two sons, and, seeing their relationship, the dynamic, they've always got each other's back. And if somebody is kind of, they kind of always know what to say to each other, to be honest with you, and to encourage and, or putting a different tactic or different thought process. It's very fascinating. And I know Roy and Walt were very close. And I think that it's so nice. Thank God Roy was around, because it seemed like one was the dreamer, one was the doer. And I'm not trying to disregard either of them. They both it was a good marriage between the two minds. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I really do not think that the Disney company would have become anywhere near what it was without both of them working the way they did.
Right. Yeah. And, it was very interesting because, of course, Walt had passed away by the time Walt Disney World opened. And Roy was very adamant. And I remember, because I make sure in my books that, Disney World is never mentioned as Disney World. It's always Walt Disney World, honoring Roy's request for it to be called Walt Disney World. And
that's correct.
Yeah. And one of my listeners, Stan, had asked, he said, when they were buying the land, he's asking your opinion about this, when they were buying land for Walt Disney World, do you think Roy would have bought much, much more if the price didn't go up after it was figured out who was buying it all? What do you think about that, Walt?
Well, they have actually bought more. The initial purchase was about 27,000 acres, and they now own almost 33,000.
Okay, but that wasn't at the beginning, though, right?
and the beginning purchase was about 27,000 acres.
Right. And did they
Walt Disney World?
Right. Did they stop because of like the monetary part of it? Like when everybody found out that Disney was moving in, of course, supply and demand, they raised the prices. Do you think they stopped because of that? Or was that just sort of, they were only going to buy 27,000 acres?
I think they got what they could. The purpose of buying the large acreage down there, one of the things that Walt didn't like about Disneyland is that it was just too small. There was only so much he could do.
Right.
And and after a couple of years, the city of Anaheim kind of encroached on Disneyland. You have all the hotels on Harbor Boulevard,
right,
and on Catella and whatnot,
mm-hmm.
and that kind of upset Walt,
mm-hmm.
because he couldn't do what he really wanted, and so the purpose of Disney World was to have enough property that he could isolate the theme park,
right,
from the rest of the world, and really Disney World was not about the parks as much as it was about Epcot.
Okay.
And the Epcot we have today is nothing like what Walt Disney had planned.
Yeah. And so when they were planning Epcot, is there a reason why they switched gears? Did Walt himself kind of switch gears as far as the planning of Epcot in the middle of planning it, or was it kind of reinvented after he had passed away?
I would say it was kind of reinvented. He was on a very specific course for Epcot, and if you want to read an excellent book
mm-hmm.
on Epcot, Sam Genoway's Walt and the Promise of Progress City.
So, okay,
excellent.
I want to write down the title. Walt, what was it? Walt
and the Promise of Progress City.
In the Promise of Progress City. Okay. And who is the author of that?
That is written by Sam Genoway.
Sam Genoway.
Geneway, I think is how it's
Genoway,
spelled.
something like that. Okay. Well, that will be really interesting, because I know we've seen the models there, right? We've seen the models. We've seen sort of the, the little demos of the futuristic home and that. I couldn't even actually quite imagine what Epcot could have been if Walt would have been alive today. It's something that
it would be. Yeah, it would have been nothing like it is today.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I doubt that it would be a theme park. The Magic Kingdom was always planned to be there,
mm-hmm.
but Epcot was planned to be a prototype city.
Yeah, gosh, that's quite amazing. Something that I think is really a cute little place, which is Celebration near Walt Disney World, which is the city.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really neat little community. I remember being taken around by a Disney executive there years and years ago when they were, just starting to build. I think the hospital was there in a few homes, but there wasn't a lot there yet. But what really struck me is the accessibility to get around, like on a little golf cart kind of vehicle. And I just thought, it was a compromise, I felt, to what Epcot could have been, as far as that little little community, that Disney built, the little city, that Disney built. And that hospital is quite innovative, and it's a teaching hospital there too. So I think that, I'm definitely going to be checking out that book. And Mary on here just put the link in on that book on Amazon. So Walt, what are some other things? My gosh, these are fascinating things about Walt that I did not know about, actually.
Things down.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about Walt Disney World, and it wasn't actually Walt that named it that. That was Roy's tribute to his brother after he passed.
Okay, what was he did he plan on? Do you know the name he was thinking about?
It was just going to be Disney World.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Makes sense. So Roy.
And we talked about the Epcot not being what it was intended to be, and actually, Epcot originally was two different park designs.
Oh.
And they basically took the front half of the park where
Future World
is.
Yeah, Future World.
And they took the pavilions in the back, and they kind of turned it around and put it together, and that's what became Epcot.
So were they going to have the Future World as a separate park from the pavilions then, or what?
I don't know if they planned it to be a separate park, or they were really having a hard time figuring out how to bring the two concepts together, and finally somebody took the two models and turned one around and put it back.
Okay.
Put it back to back.
Okay. And of course we've got the walkway and that, which, Epcot is so big. I mean, is Epcot apart from Animal Kingdom? But I think Epcot is the largest park, right? After Animal Kingdom, isn't it? Or
actually, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Animal Kingdom is the largest park, and you can actually fit all three of the other parks within the boundaries of Animal Kingdom.
Gosh, that's amazing. Wow.
It's like 400 or 500 acres.
Wow. And you know what I'm always amazed about is that, so they've only built 1/3 of the land that they own. I know 1/3 is to remain in conservation, but they still have 1/3 that they can build on, which just is mind-boggling. To have another complete Walt Disney World, I mean, that would be like Walt Disney Universe, I'm sure. I'd call Walt Disney Universe, I would think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is amazing because, they talk about having a third for conservation, a third for that is developed, and a third that they can still develop.
Wow. I can't even imagine. My gosh. Would you have anything else to share with us, Walt, in your findings?
Let's see. Looking at my notes, and I see that something that maybe not many people know is that Rhett Law, which is Walter backwards, and Wed were actually, again, they were not necessarily Walt's idea. The idea came from Roy, and Roy's idea was that Walt should protect his interest,
right,
in the parks and whatnot. And so Rhett Law was kind of Walt's way of making some additional money, because they would farm out the development of the park and whatnot to Wed. And Rhett Law actually owned, up until I believe it was sometime in the 80s, late 80s, that it changed, but Rhett Law actually owned the Walt Disney Railroad at Disneyland.
Okay, so Rhett Law, RETLAW, which is Walter backwards. And that's
exactly what it is.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because, there came a time where he would have to keep his stuff separated from his personal things, right? It just business, that makes business sense. You don't want to encroach too much in your own personal things, right?
The railroad was basically his hobby. He had always been into trains from a very young age. But what happened, of course, with any corporation is that the Walt Disney company became a public corporation.
Right, yeah.
And so, this was a way for Walt to maintain his piece of the company.
Very neat.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. Do you think Walt's fascination with trains started, when he was little, maybe living in Marcelin, and when the trains would come through the town? Do you know about where his fascination of trains came from?
I think it came from his younger years. He used to be a news butcher on a train when he was younger.
Okay, what's a news butcher? That's a new term for me.
It's a newsboy.
A newsboy. Okay.
Yeah, he would basically sell papers and some fruit, some other stuff on train routes.
Oh my word. So he'd actually go on the train and sell newspapers before the trains left, I guess.
He'd actually go on train trips with them, from what I understand.
Wow. Wow.
I think he was on a route between Kansas City and I can't remember the other end of the railroad that he rode to. But he'd ride back and forth selling papers.
Well, that's pretty impressive, because the thing is when you think about those days, of course they had cars, but they sure didn't go very quickly. I'm sure that the train would have been the fastest vehicle that he would ever have been on.
Yep.
And to see the sights and see the country, and probably, that's maybe where his, I would say maybe a seed was planted for his sense of adventure. I'm just thinking, that, he was a very imaginative and creative human being anyways, but I just think that maybe that might have fueled even more of it,
It's very possible. And he was, at a very early age, he was very artistic.
Yeah.
Again, going up to the Walt Disney Family Museum, Gallery 1 talks a lot about his younger years between birth and probably about 10, 11 years old.
Mm. And isn't it really neat, the connection between his job as a newsboy and his love for trains? And it was on a train that he created Mickey Mouse, wasn't it? I think so.
Yes, it was.
Gosh.
He and Lillian had gone back to New York, and she was going to renegotiate was going to try to renegotiate what was going on with Roger Rabbit at the time.
Okay.
And that was when he went back into New York, is when he lost Roger Rabbit to Minsk and basically Universal.
Right.
By the way, I happen to think that Al Michaels going from ESPN and ABC over to NBC and Universal for Roger Rabbit is probably one of the best sports trades in the world. Because that's what brought Roger Rabbit home.
It is.
That NBC wanted Al Michaels, and ABC traded him away.
There you go. Wonders never cease, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is just very fascinating. Now, some of Walt's buddies also had an interest in trains, and I'm not sure if they built a train in their backyard for their children, or whether Walt was the one that built a train, because he could actually, it was big. I mean, it wasn't massive, of course, but it was big enough for him to actually sit on it, I think, and the girls too, right? His kids and a few other neighbor children. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know that I think it was Ward Kimball, Ollie Johnson, and Frank Thomas were all, I don't know about Frank Thomas, but I know Ollie Johnson were all heavily into railroads. And from what I understand, Ward Kimball and Ollie had full-size narrow gauge trains on their property.
Mm-hmm.
So similar to what you see at Disneyland. And it was Walt that had the little miniature train, the Lily Bell, at the Carrollwood property.
Right. And now he had a red barn there that has been moved. And now, did he store his trains in there, or did he do his repairs on those trains?
Yes and yes. He did work on his trains in there, and I think they were stored in there when they weren't in use.
Okay.
And that barn is now in Griffith Park.
Okay.
And it was donated to the LA Steamers.
Nice.
Which is a miniature train group that operates out of there.
Right. Yeah, that's neat. I mean, who didn't love a train ride? I remember going to the zoo, Storyland Valley Zoo, back in Alberta, Canada, and riding that little train. Something I just want to mention to some of our listeners. You had mentioned Roger. I knew it was Oswald. I'd mentioned Oswald because it was Oswald. You had mentioned Roger, the rabbit. It was Oswald, the lucky rabbit, and Oswald.
Oswald.
Yeah, we knew it was Oswald. It was just sort of a bit of a slip of the tongue. Thanks, Alex, though, and Michelle and all that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
Oswald. I get to talking and I forget.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I knew what you meant, and that's why I said Oswald, and I thought I'd just clear that up for folks that were kind of getting a little bit confused, because of course we had the animation Roger Rabbit, right? But it's nothing to do with Oswald, Lucky Rabbit, right? And actually one of our little buddies that we had rescued several years ago had the same name as our dog, like Oscar, I guess. And so we named him Oswald the Lucky Rabbit because we thought he was pretty lucky. He was a real sweet lop-eared. Anyways, so the trains, now I have heard that some of the original tracks are still in the yard of the home and I'm thinking, was it the home in Holmby Hills or?
Yeah. Yes, it was the Holmby Holmes Hills at Carrollwood. Right,
at Carrollwood, that still have some of the tracks. Guys, can you imagine? I can't imagine. Can you imagine the homeowners now? Is the home a landmark, or do people actually live in there?
The home was torn down and there's a new estate there.
Okay, so the people. Okay, yeah, that's too bad because I saw the model of that house at the Family Museum. But I just think that'd be so amazing to have your property that Walt Disney used to live on and have his train tracks still in there, because we don't see a lot of track removed from the prairies or the old places and along the routes anywhere in Canada or the US. And I think that would be really cool to have a piece of that history in my backyard, actually, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know what all exists of the railroad, but I do know that that little tunnel under the front of the property and around to the back that comes into work. That was actually, Walt actually drew up paperwork and had a easement paperwork drawn up with Lillians so that he could tunnel underneath her garden because she wouldn't let him go over the garden.
Oh! Well, I kind of understand that. I mean, she wouldn't be able to really garden too well if he was riding his track there. Oh, you know what? Yeah. So I just, one of our listeners said, Alex, said unfortunately no more of the original track exists. Oh, that's so sad. Only the S curve tunnel. Oh, okay. So the tunnel that you're just speaking about.
Yeah.
Oh, that breaks my heart because, this stuff is so valuable. This is such a piece of history, you know, anything to do with the original. And, it's interesting about Lillian's garden. I'm actually, I've heard through the grapevine that I'm supposed to get some seeds, flower seeds from their original garden that would be like great grandchildren probably of Walt and Lillian's flower beds. Well, Lillian's flower beds mainly. So if that does come to pass, I am going to plant them and hopefully not kill them because I'm not so much a green thumb, but I hope that I can share that with you and say, hey, these are from Lillian's garden, which is kind of fun. Anyways, I digressed a little bit.
That would be neat.
Yeah, really neat, right? And it's the flowers I heard, once they die, they have seeds, and so it could kind of keep going, right? So I'll definitely be looking forward to receiving those. As I said, I've heard that I'm supposed to be getting some, so I hope it happens. Do you have anything else, Walt, to share with us? I've kind of left it a little bit up in the air for you. What you want to tell us, and yeah.
That pretty much covers
it. Okay, very good. Yeah. No, thank you so much. One
other side note though is that back to the issue of the Masons, and that Club 33 is named because it's the 33 degree Mason is first of all a Master Mason is, I believe, somewhere between the 3rd and 5th degree. And 33 degrees up in that area. The Masons have their degreeing system, but they don't really talk about it. Okay. But Club 33 was named Club 33 strictly because 33 was the next address on Royal Street in New Orleans Square. It had nothing to do with masonry.
Oh, for goodness sakes. Well, that is neat. Now, I have heard, there's more than one Club 33 now. I think it's called Club Royale or something like that at Disneyland. But I think, didn't they open several more in Walt Disney World now? Do they not have some...
I don't know. I don't know what they're called at Disney World. I don't know what they have.
Okay.
But, I believe Club 33 is the only one of its kind in existence.
Right. Okay.
There is a new place that they've opened up at Disneyland, which is 21 Royal Street.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. Right. Yeah.
And you bet, if you're going to have a meal there, you better have a lot of money.
Yeah, I've heard a little extravagant, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, one of my listeners, he's asking, how did that rumor start that they froze Walt Disney's body so he could be resurrected someday? Where in the world did that rumor start?
Honestly, it could possibly be attributed to a couple of Imagineers. It could be. Nobody knows for sure where it started.
Okay.
Walt Disney was, of course, very interested in technology and advancements.
Yeah.
So it made sense. I know that was one of Diane's least favorite stories.
Yeah. I bet.
About him.
Yeah. I remember hearing that. As a child. And we were like, oh my gosh, I grew up with Star Trek and that, but it just seems so far-fetched, and I was kind of glad to hear that wasn't true, really. I think that is a little wild, but something that I have my listeners mentioning, and this is something pretty new, I'm sure, but there is a Club 33 in each of the parks at Walt Disney World, because I know a member there actually, but they're presently building one apparently at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And I'm not too sure where where they're located. I think that would be really fun to check them out. But again, it's very expensive even just to belong to the club, But anyways, yeah. So, but just kind of back to that story, because one of my listeners is asking, or commenting on the whole cryogenic, frozen in time type of thing of Walt. He figured it started from one of those grocery store magazines, that really they don't tell the truth. I mean, a lot of them don't tell the truth, but you know what I mean? Like something from that to get sales or something.
Yeah, I can tell you from all that I have read on Walt Disney that there are a couple people out there who have produced stories that aren't even close.
Oh yeah.
To what Walt Disney was like. Yeah, one of the stories that is quite frequently talked around is that Walt was anti-Semite, which is very untrue.
Yeah, I know that wasn't true at all. I know.
I have heard stories talked about Walt talking to Kay Kamen when the stories were first starting, and that Kay told Walt that the people that are saying that he's anti-Semite should really come back to New York and see who was on the Disney rolls.
Yes.
And the Disney merchandising, because they were almost all Jewish.
Right, exactly. And, Walt was such a lover of humanity, really. And anybody that I have met that had met Walt had always, he was always a very kind and always a gentleman, always a grandfatherly type of person. And he was a taskmaster. I know that, which he had to be. He had to be in order to get things done. If he wouldn't have been, things just wouldn't have happened. I really don't think, something about Walt. I mean, you had a chance to speak at length with Diane. What was Diane like? Who was Diane like?
Very quiet, very private person. I have always been amazed that they opened up the museum in San Francisco, because the Millers, for the most part, are a very private family.
Right.
And I know several of Walt's grandchildren that I've met at the museum and whatnot, and they're all great people and pretty much shy and quiet. They are not. I don't know what.
Showy. They're not really showy. No.
Very good word. They're not showy. They are very private individuals.
Right. And I do know that I think they're very down to earth as well, right? They're
yes, they are.
Yeah. And I think that's wonderful. It says a lot about the integrity, of the family. And I think that is so wonderful, that he had a family, and through his children, and his grandchildren, his legacy will live on in the fact of being a family. Walt did amazing things that we all love, but there comes a point where it's so large that it doesn't involve the man, right? The man's legacy is his children and grandchildren, great grandchildren, and all that, right? But I just think that we are so fortunate to live, at least I feel very fortunate to live in this era where we get to experience these wonderful things that he created. And I often wonder what it would have been like to go to Disneyland when it was first opening. I remember, I'm trying to think what year I went there. I think it was like in 1970s. 76, 77 or something like that. I mean, it had already been open for quite a while. But I remember there were things there that were quite different, than what we have now. And to have been able to meet Walt, I think would have been so fun, like just absolutely so fun to meet him, and anyways, I just wish I could have. That's one of the people that I would love to meet, and have a conversation with, just to sort of see how his mind really worked. As I said, there's still people around, that knew Walt, when he was with us, but the most of us would never see that, except, on reruns of The Wonderful World of Disney, or, some of his documentaries and that. But I just think it would be really, really neat person to meet, and lucky for you that some of the and have met some of the family members, because that's even beyond a lot of our reach, most of our reaches too.
As I've told them, I have a rather diluted connection to Walt Disney,
right?
Because number one, I am about 6 weeks younger than Disneyland.
Oh.
Disneyland opened in July of 55. I was born in August of 55.
Oh, okay. There you go. Isn't that fun? Oh my goodness.
And my mother's maiden name is Miller.
Okay. There's no connection though, right? Or
no connection whatsoever. And I was named after my grandfather, who is a Walter E. also.
Oh, for crying out loud. I guess Walter was a very popular name back in the day, and it continued to be so moving forward. Gosh, Walt, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing a little bit about Walt Disney, the man. And, some of my listeners also let me know a few things as well. So I just want to thank you very much, Walt. And you have a wonderful evening. All right?
You too as well.
Okay, thanks. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh my goodness, you guys. This is, it never fails, whether I'm talking to a cast member or doing a tour or even catching a documentary or like the magazine I showed you guys earlier. There's always something different that I learn. And I hope you guys have learned a few things on this show as well. And thank you for sharing with us tonight. And I want to wish you guys just a wonderful evening. And until next week, bye for now. Take care and be well.